Hello and welcome to my channel. If you have been following along with the intimacy practices, today is going to be the final video, and now we get into the fun stuff. This is where I have the two of you touching each other, playing around with one another, and using some Sensate Focus to really turn one another on. So these are the intimacy practices that are in my book. And if you have been following along, then we are going to go over this. If you don't have the book, you can still benefit from this video. And I'm going to not go over everything in detail because that would take a very long time, but I'm going to run through the practices with you so that you can get started and enjoy these wonderful, sensual exercises that you can do with your spouse, your partner, and so we will get started. Okay, the first one is on kissing. And sometimes people forget how sensual kissing can be. And to take the time to get to know how your spouse likes to kiss and vice versa is very important. So what you will do is you'll each take turns kissing each other and doing it in different ways. Sometimes couples, one person will be the one initiating the kissing and the other one kind of follows. You will both have a chance to explore each other's lips and the way that you like to kiss. If you like to use your tongue, if you like to run your tongue along the inside of the teeth, if you like sensual kissing, sucking or biting lips, all of those things you can try out with each other and see how you feel about it. Now, the one great thing about kissing is it really can stimulate the body and prepare the body for sex. So it can create your sexual organs to become filled with blood, to engorge. It can make a woman wet. This is all part of foreplay and really being sensual and getting to know how to turn one another on. So, spend a little time kissing each other and enjoying how it feels and the sensation, and be in touch with your own body and what's going on with your own body when you are making out. Okay, so that would be the first exercise that you want to try, and then you can go into the touching exercise after, and this would be done in one session. So after you're kissing, then you will both lay down on the bed. Now, this is always about one person being in charge, so the person that's initiating and the other person receiving, and then you switch off and you do it to each other. So the person initiating this time would start by touching the body from the head all the way down to the toe, and it would be not a massage, but more sensual caressing, feeling the skin, just seeing how the other person responds to a touch. And it could be you simply, running your hand on hair or underneath the hair, on the back of the neck, down the side of the hand. Sensual touching is slower and it's also longer strokes. So you want to take the time to really get into that. And I do have a video on sensual touching if you want to go back and you can see how it's done. But if you want to try to just get through some of these exercises, you want to start with the sensual touching. You're both naked and you both do that to each other for about 15-20 minutes. There is no sex involved at this point because you really don't want to put pressure on one another to be sexual. This is about reconnecting, touching, being sensual, and seeing how your spouse responds to simple touch. And this is also part of Sensate Focus. And if you don't know what that is, take some time to look it up. It was developed as a way to learn how to touch one another again, to be intimate again, and I have incorporated that into all of the intimacy practices. So now we're going to move on to practice number 2. And again, if you have the book, I have notes back here, so after each practice you can write down what worked, what maybe didn't work, and talk about it. So intimacy, the next practice is about exploring more of the body. So it wouldn't just be touching the arms or the neck, it would be touching the genitals, the breasts, and not directly going in and touching them, but first doing the touching exercise for like 10 minutes, and then working into touching the other parts of the body, making sure that your partner is always comfortable, doing some deep breathing exercises together, being naked with each other, and you can also use a blindfold. This is where the blindfold might come into play, and it can be a lot of fun. So sometimes if you're uncomfortable with your own body, or if you just really are trying to get into yourself and not looking at the other person, putting a blindfold on while your partner is touching you can relax you. It can also just help you to really feel what's going on instead of having your eyes open. And so a lot of people really like this when they incorporate the blindfold into this part of the touching. It makes it more comfortable, more sensual, and then you can really focus on what it feels like. So I know I'm skipping through these a little quick, but this would be like if you're doing these exercises the next week, this would be the next one that the two of you are doing together. So touching each other's genitals, breasts, using a blindfold, and then taking your time to do it. Again, it's not about having sex afterwards or even either one of you having an orgasm. If an orgasm does happen, that's fine, but there's no expectation on it. And that's part of this too, is you don't want to put pressure on each other to have sex at this point, because you're just kind of getting back into the sensual aspect, into the intimacy part of it, and so you want to make sure to take it slow. So then the next exercise would be, now you're exploring different types of touch on the genitals and the breasts. And if you're touching your husband's penis, you would put different pressure on, see what he likes, go around the penis, go around the balls, the testicles, the inner thighs. So now you're doing more of a touching, teasing, erotic, stimulating, but you're not necessarily doing it so he can have an orgasm. It's not a hand job. It's that you're just touching for sensation and pleasure. Again, when the man is touching the woman, it's rubbing the inner thighs. It's going on the vulva, on the top of it, around it, exploring softly, and touching the clitoris. And if you're going to go inside the vagina, make sure that she is stimulated, or use a lubrication, and never go all the way in. Just maybe use your fingers around the vaginal opening and kind of see how your partner is feeling, and be aware of if they're wanting you to go any further. And also on the breasts, don't necessarily go right for the nipple, but you want to touch around the nipple and have it be much more sensual. And that's what we're really going towards, is the sensual aspect of it, learning how to turn your partner on. And then again, you're not doing this so that the person can achieve orgasm, but if orgasm happens, well then I guess that's just a bonus to it. So it's not excluding that, and the pressure's not there, because if someone is having any type of performance anxiety or any anxiety or pressure around having an orgasm, this will take the pressure away, and sometimes the body can relax enough where a person can have an orgasm just from the fact that you're not telling them that they have to. Okay, hope that makes sense. So going on to the next part, and And this last exercise can also involve your mouth. If you want to explore oral sex with each other, this would be the time to do that with your hands, or even rubbing your body on one another. So you definitely can try different things with the mouth, the tongue, and just see how the other person reacts to it. And then now we're going to get to, I'm going to skip this because I have one part in here that talks about sharing fantasies with one another, which is a really great chapter, and that's something the two of you can explore before or after. I also have a video on that as well. I do go over that in the book. But now we're going to get to the final intimacy exercise, and this is where the two of you have now taken several weeks of touching, exploring each other's bodies, talking to each other about how it feels, making sure one another is comfortable with everything that you're doing, as well as not to forget that you're taking turns with each other. And so it's not one person, again, that's doing all the work. There's no rejection involved. You equally are putting the time and energy into it, and you equally are participating in it. So this last part is about having intercourse, and I have in the book some different positions, and I also have a video on different positions too. But this last chapter is really about, here's another one too, like these are some nice positions. This one's really great where you're kind of cuddling with each other too. So this is another position. But this is where you really start to slowly explore what feels good, and obviously different positions are going to hit different parts of the body, and you have to be comfortable with that. So it's not like you can just jump into trying different positions. Start out with something familiar at first, and remember, when you get to the part where you're having intercourse, you still want to use all of the other techniques as foreplay beforehand. So you're making sure that you've turned each other on, you're both aroused physically and mentally, and then once you're at that part, you can slowly try to have intercourse. Find a position that feels good at first, and then as you move along in the weeks ahead, you can try different positions and decide what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what adjustments you may want to make. And also, if you get to the part where you're having intercourse and you're finding that you need to pull back and maybe go over some of the other intimacy exercises again, some couples do that. Some can stay in the exploring part of the program or the exercises for weeks, where they're just exploring each other's bodies, finding out how to turn one another on, without actually having intercourse, and that's fine too. There's no exact formula. Every couple is different, and couples really need to check in with one another to make sure that they are comfortable with each part of the exercise. And so the book was really designed for couples that are not being intimate with one another, or who haven't been intimate, or maybe want to get reacquainted with each other again. So it's not a process where you hurry and just go to intercourse. You really, really want to take your time getting to that point. And then once you are there and you're comfortable, then you can try different positions, even role play. You can also use the blindfold in this. That can be fun too. And then if you want to experiment even further with using, like I said, some type of role play or talking to each other, reading erotic stories, that's part of the fantasy, or role playing out something that you've thought is sexy. Once you get comfortable with each other, you can introduce some of the other ideas that you may have and start sharing with each other. So that is going to be the end of this series, and I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have not had a chance to listen to the other parts of it, please take your time to do so. And also go back into my video library. I have lots of videos on fantasies, touching, and positions that you can watch with your spouse and kind of get yourselves getting back into the groove of being intimate. And I will say that intimacy is a very big part of a marriage. And when you lose that, it can be extremely painful for, both of you, because you lose that special connection. And for many couples, it's really sad when you've lost that connection and it no longer feels like a marriage, but maybe just friends or roommates. And that can be very painful for some people. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and leave your comment. As you know, I believe everyone deserves to have a healthy sex life, and so do you.